good morning everyone. So I'll be basically speaking on the principles and practices in the management of corneal tear repair. So we know that the corneoscleral tear has a varied presentations, and it comes with various complications. So managing each tear is again, it is very different from each other. Corneal trauma is the second most common cause of corneal blindness. It occurs most commonly in the males and more common in the younger generation. There are a few common sites of rupture in the cornea. It is the limbus, and wherever there is a prior corneal incision site, for example, the radial cuts in radial keratotomy and the graft-os junction following penetrating keratoplasties. In sclera, it lies just behind the extraocular muscle insertion and the cataract surgery wounds. There are a few investigations which have to be done wherever required. For example, the B-scan, this machine, most of us we have in our practices. So it is important to rule out intraocular foreign bodies, the status of the posterior capsule, and to also assess the posterior segment if there is a vitreous hemorrhage or a retinal detachment. So B-scan will give us a fairly good input. The UBM is important to know the presence of a foreign body. For example, if there is a foreign body which is lodged in the angle, it can be detected by a UBM, and then the intraoperative plan can be managed. Corneal scraping, in case we have an infected wound, if there is an infiltrate present at the wound, then we have to do a microbiological test. We have to take the sample and send it for a microbiological evaluation, and that will help in better management. X-ray or a CT scan is helpful to rule out foreign body and associated cranial, orbital or facial trauma. So what is the primary aim of doing a repair? It is to achieve a watertight closure of the globe and for restoration of the structural integrity. The secondary aim are to avoid uveal or iris incarceration, remove the necrotic tissue and remove the disrupted lens and manage accordingly. Tertiary aim is visual improvement and prevent complications in future. So we know that when we have two kinds of cut. One is the vertical cut and the other is a valve-like cut. So vertical cut will need definitely a surgery. It doesn't close on its own spontaneously, so we have to do a repair. Whereas if we have a beveled cut, like the lower picture, sometimes it acts like a valve and it just closes without the need of any intervention. So coaptation is not required in such cases, but cases may be different. So whenever we're putting a sutures, that also confers a zone of compression. The zone of compression is equal to the length of the sutures. So this is very important because the zone of compression should overlap to achieve water tightness. In these two cases, we know that the diamond zone of compression, that is overlapping, so and we have a watertight wound. Whereas in these cases, the sutures are small, the zone of compression is less, they do not overlap, and these cases may leak in future. How to take a needle bite? We should hold the needle in the lateral 2/3 and medial lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3 junction, and and whenever we are passing the needle, it should be like same on either side of the wound. If we have a linear tear, it should be on either side of the wound. To get a better accuracy, the needle should pass perpendicular or parallel to the plane of the corneal lamella. Now, what should be the depth of the sutures? Like in penetrating keratoplasty, the optimum depth should be 90%. At least we should aim for 80 to 90% depth. What happens if it is superficial? The suture length is shorter than what is expected, and the iris tissue sometimes it gets adhered. There is a gap in the posterior wound, and iris tissue may come and plug that site. And what happens if it's 100% depth? It causes a tract, and that forms a tract for infection. It can cause leak, and epithelial ingrowth may present in the next few months. So what is the ideal length of the sutures? Again, if it is a vertical wound, the length of the sutures should be equal on either side of the wound. But if it is a beveled kind of a wound, like in D, so we should take the posterior edge of the wound, and that should be equal on either side. We should try to do it with a no-touch technique. If we hold the edges of the wound, then it may cause crushing of the tissue and tissue loss. So better is to, with the help of a Vanas, we can stabilize the globe by holding it away from the wound rather than directly in the wound. So this is a very short video. So there is a linear Yeah, the linear TER, see that I'm holding the limbus, we are holding the vanas at the limbus and trying to pass the suture on either side, and then you can provide. So what is the sequence of suturing? If it is a linear tear, no, you can also do it as interrupted wherever you want to, but if it is an angle tear, it is better to suture first the angles and then put interrupted sutures in between to achieve a good integrity. If you have a limbal tear, then the suturing of the limbus is very important, and then the rest of the angles and then the sutures in between. Now this rule says that, longer sutures, they cause greater tissue distortion and astigmatism. So we should always put longer and tighter sutures at the periphery and shorter and widely spaced sutures in the center to have a better post-astigmatic control. Now for stellate lacerations, they are, again there is no rule. What has ideally been described in literature is to take the help of a diamond knife and make incisions at 50% depth and use a purse string suture. But we know that it may not be possible at all times, so we can put intermediate sutures, we can put X sutures, and we can also just use bridging sutures to close the wound. So if we have a full thickness corneal tear or a simple tear meaning wound not involving the limbus, where there is no iris or vitreous incarceration and there is no damage to the lens, we can, and if it is less than 2 millimeter, we can see if it is self-sealing or not and take the help of a BCL. If it is not self-sealing, we can do a primary repair, and if there is a wound loss, then TABCL. If we have a tissue loss of less than equal to 5 millimeter, we should always have a tissue in hand in case we need to do a patch graft. And if the tissue loss is more than 5 millimeter, then a primary corneal transplantation, even though the results are not very great, but that will only help us in achieving the anatomic integrity. If we have a combined sclerocorneal tear, first is the wound exploration to delineate the full extent of the tear, followed by first the limbal suturing, then the corneal, then the scleral suturing. So here we have a video where we know that this is a tear at the limbus, parallel to the limbus. So first, knowing the extent of the tear is very important. Then I'm trying to push the iris inside, but somehow it is not going. So I'm trying to repair by taking care not to go through the iris, and then by making a side port from the opposite end, push the iris inside, and then followed by closure of the wound. If you have a vitreous loss or incarceration, the primary goal is again to relieve any vitreous incarceration, because that will cause traction on the retina. Limbal or a pars plana approach for our anterior segment surgeons, we are comfortable doing it the limbal way, and the complete vitreous removal is a must, and the pupil should be circular without peaking. Either you can take the help of a triamcinolone acetonide to see whether there is any remnant vitreous, or the help of just at the end of the surgery, we should make sure that there is no vitreous in the AC and the pupil is round and circular. So coming to a few pearls that I'm going to share, is there a role of pre-op antibiotic, topical or systemic in such cases? Most of us, I think, would be comfortable. In cataract surgery, we do not advise systemic antibiotics, but in these cases, systemic antimicrobial prophylaxis is better, either ciprofloxacin or augmentin, whichever you feel comfortable with. Intravitreal antibiotic injection, again, it's a very individual surgeon's choice. If you feel that in a B scan, you feel that there are a few echoes that might give you a suspicion of an endophthalmitis, then it is better to give a dose of intravitreal antibiotic at the same time after you complete your corneal repair. This is an RCT which has been done on 346 eyes, where they've compared intracameral or intravitreal in one group and the other group was a control. They've seen that the endophthalmitis incidence was low as 0.3% in the group which received intracameral all intravitreal, and the other group it was comparatively higher. So this I think giving a dose of intravitreal or intracameral moxi also helps us a lot. The most widely accepted regimen is a combination of topical, systemic, plus or minus intravitreal antibiotics. If you see a hole in the iris, you should try to elicit the nature of trauma. In these cases, B scan to know whether there is a vitreous hemorrhage, choroidal hemorrhage, presence of any wooden or a vegetative foreign body is required. And UBM again will help you in seeing the angle foreign body, and you can plan your incisions or a side port depending on where the foreign body is. X-ray to see if there is a radiopaque foreign body. Choice of anesthesia, general anesthesia is should be preferred, but it is not available in all cases. So retrobulbar or a peribulbar injections can induce or aggravate, but we cannot give, we should not give it in bolus, rather 2 millimeter, 2 ml, and then wait for another 2-3 minutes, then again 2 ml. We can give topical anesthesia, IV sedation can be given. If you have an iris prolapse, then again depends on how healthy the underlying iris is. If it is less than, we can just peel off the epithelium over the iris and see if the underlying iris is healthy, then maybe we can just repose it back. And if it is not or looks unhealthy, macerated, infected, then we can just abscise it. If there is a damage done to the lens, whether to do a primary lens aspiration or do it along with a IOL implantation, I would prefer doing the lens aspiration, leave the patient aphakic, remove sutures after 3 months, do a scan, and then go for a secondary IOL implantation. I think I'm running out of time, but yeah. So first, this corneal tear repair is done. After doing the repair, I'll make a side port and with the help of a AC maintainer, try to remove the loose cortex and see the status of the posterior capsule. In case the PC is not intact, then plan a good anterior vitrectomy and then leave it aphakic, and at the end bury the sutures. If the wound looks infected, then in this photo you can see that there is a few. This was a tear which was done elsewhere and referred to us when the patient had an infiltrate. We can know that few of the sutures are not buried, and there's a lot of tissue necrosis. You can expect a lot of tissue necrosis, and it's very important. Whatever sample you have, you can send it to a microbiology lab to know what is the organism. And in these cases, they may need a tissue adhesive to seal it. If you have a foreign body impacted on the, this was a patient who was a construction worker, so he came with a large amount of cement falling into the eye. And first of all, the corneal tear repair is done, and then making a side port that is away from where this is, and then increasing the side port and taking out the foreign body from the side port, and then doing a lens aspiration. So to summarize, we should always remember the effect of laceration and suturing on the corneal shape. That is why we should know the principles of a corneal tear suturing before we go in the OR. Simple interpretive sutures are the best. Compression zones must overlap to make sure that the wound doesn't leak postoperatively. Wound override should be avoided, and this is how, like, placing the sutures at 90% depth and knowing the principles are important. For linear insertion, longer, tighter bite at the periphery and smaller appositional bite at the centers are mandatory. In corneoscleral tear repair, again, limbal sutures should be placed first. So any case of corneal tear repair should be treated as an emergency so as to have a better visual and a functional outcome in future. Thank you. For corneal tears, we can use tenonylon. For limbal tears, you can use tenonylon or a nylon. Orolab can provide you. And for scleral, it is always atovicryl that is used for the sclera and the conjunctiva. Limbus, nino is best because those tears have to be, you have to be a bit, need a greater strength, so nino is better, but nino is usually not available in all hospitals. So teno, or you can ask the Orolab to give you nylon sutures.
And you bury all the knots?
Yes, all knots have to be buried.
That will irritate much, no?
Because it causes a lot of irritation, and then when we are placing a BCL to avoid irritation, that is itself, it's a source of infection, because anyway we will be putting these patients on antibiotic and steroids. So better is to bury the knots and bury it in such a way that it will be easier to remove it. Scleral sutures, they don't need removal, but all corneal sutures have to be removed. If they're loose, they have to remove even if it is day 2. Otherwise, at 3 months, we can remove them and then wait for some time, do a scan and do lens aspiration or a cataract, secondary cataract if required. Even if the PC is intact, you will not get an ideal IOL power possible, and it is always, if we have seen in few of our cataract cases also, sometimes IOL power between the two eyes are different. So better is to wait for some time, and while we are counseling the patient for a primary repair, we should always counsel that these patients will need multiple surgeries in future to get better visual outcome. So instead of, sometimes you may not see the PC, there may be zonular weakness or something, so better is to leave it as such. And we have seen that at the end of 3 months, the PC also get opacified and fibrosed. The IOL stays better, a rigid IOL stays better in those cases than when it is done in a primary. Yes, it will be different. Definitely it is going to cause it more flatter. So the final IOL power will depend on how your sutures are and how the wound healing is. Thank you.